On April 24th, 1926, the Holy Synod of the State Church of Greece issued a very harsh encyclical directed against traditional Orthodox Christians, also known as the Old Calendarists. The encyclical states, "The Old Calendarists separate themselves from the Church and cut themselves off from the body of Christ, drawing upon themselves condemnation and excommunication." In 1951, after a short respite, a new and more intense and far more sustained persecution by the state-controlled New Calendar Church broke out against the traditionalist, genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece. The spiritual leader of the traditionalist Christians, the saintly 81-year-old Metropolitan Chrysostomos of Florina, was arrested and exiled for 15 months in a remote monastery on the island of Mytilene. During the course of his exile, his former deacon and, by now patriarch, Athenagoras, proposed to him that he join the New Calendarist Church and be released from his imprisonment and abandon his holy struggle and his principles. In his letter to the saint, the patriarch pointed out that all other Old Calendarist bishops of the Traditionalist Church had abandoned their struggle and had joined the New Calendar Church, and that he, Chrysostomos, was the only bishop left fighting for what was now a lost cause. In a letter penned from his exile, Saint Chrysostomos responded to his former deacon.
Even if, hypothetically, every old calendarist returned to the new calendar, and there remained only one old calendarist, that one would be me, Chrysostomos, the former Metropolitan of Florina.
Athens, April 10th, 1953. To the Ladies' Association of the Holy Sepulchre of St. John the Baptist Church in New York. In my desire for your salvation and well-being, I shout the words that are the joy of all creation. Christ is arisen. I received your letter dated April 4th, 1953, which I read with great interest. I thank you for the sympathy that you are manifesting to those of us who are suffering due to our struggle to preserve and uphold the holy traditions of our forebears. Those who wield power in this age and who persecute us do not consider the final and righteous judgment of our Lord, who will recompense everyone according to their works. How is it that in these times in which we live, wherein is heard a constant caterwaul of support for human rights and freedom, we are experiencing religious persecution? It can only be but to serve to fulfill the Lord's words to his holy apostles. In this life you will suffer. And to confirm the words of the Apostle Paul, all those who want to live piously in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. This is why our tormentors act as they do. But we are filled with a calming peace when we hear the words of the Apostle Petros, who says, "If you suffer, it should not be as a murderer or a thief or any other kind of criminal, or even as a meddler. However, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear that name. We are not ashamed, but we glorify God who allows suffering for the benefit of his entire creation." We were gladdened when informed by your letter that the priest we sent you, Father Petros Astofides, has been found worthy of his mission and our hopes. We pray for the continuance of his good work, not so his pride will increase, but so that you, his spiritual children, will benefit from his success. We fervently thank you for the economic help that you sent us to support our holy struggle. May the Lord generously grant you recompense in this life and in the next for your loving generosity. In closing, we bestow upon you our paternal blessings. Chrysostomos, the former Metropolitan of Florina, President of the Holy Synod of the Church of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece.
How did Bishop Petros meet the Russian bishops? That had to be December 25th, 1954, when Bishop Petros met Archbishop Averki of Syracuse and Archbishop Leonti of Chile in Grand Central Station. December 25th, 1954, had to be that day, most likely on that day, the day most New Yorkers were celebrating Christmas. On this day, in 1954, December 25th or December 12th, depending on which calendar you're following, Father Petros was on his way to visit the Pirialas family in Cortland, New York. He had to catch the train. He took the train from Astoria to Grand Central, the subway to Grand Central, and from Grand Central, he was catching the New York Central line. Now, when he entered the Great Hall, Father Petros noticed two other clergymen dressed in the traditional Orthodox Christian manner that priests usually dressed in. And he approached them, and through broken English, the three clergymen, they established that they were all celebrating the feast of St. Spiridon. And they were all headed to catch the same train on the New York Central line, the Hudson line of the New York Central line. And Father Petros was getting off at Cortland, where the Pirialas family lived and whom he was going to visit. And the other two clergymen were actually the Russian hierarchs, Archbishop Averki of Syracuse and Archbishop Leonti of Chile. And they were taking the same train to Herkimer, which was near their destination of Holy Trinity Monastery. Now, on this hour-long train ride to Cortland, it gave these men a chance to realize that they were of one mind regarding holy tradition, ecumenism, and all the modernist innovations and trends that were infecting the Orthodox Church at that time, and still are. So they became close friends for the rest of their lives. 8 years after this train ride, Archbishop Leonti would ordain Bishop Petros to the episcopacy in the Cathedral of St. Markella, and they remained friends for the rest of their lives.
By the end of 1955, The last of the traditionalist Greek Orthodox bishops who adhered to Holy Tradition and to the Julian Old Calendar had died. Traditionalist Old Calendarist Greek Orthodox Christians were now without bishops who could minister to them. Recognizing this as a completely uncanonical situation in which to be, they formed a committee of 12 clergymen to govern the church, and they began a search for someone to ordain bishops for them. Since Father Petros had been compelled to stay in America to establish the parish of St. Markella in Astoria, he joined the jurisdiction of the Russian Metropolia, now known as the Orthodox Church of America. Metropolitan Leonte Turkovich made him the dean of the Greek churches that came into the Metropolia with Father Petros, and he awarded him the honor of wearing a mitre. Even though Metropolitan Leonte honored Father Petros by elevating him to the rank of mitred priest, he was not willing to ordain him, or any other Greek, as a bishop for traditionalist Greek Americans. Such a move would be viewed by the modernist New Calendarist Greek American Church as the creation of a rival jurisdiction. The traditionalist Greeks were still without a bishop who spoke their language. During this period, when he was rebuffed by the Metropolia, Father Petros came into contact with clergymen of another Orthodox church that was headquartered in New York City, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, known as ROCOR. ROCOR was seen by the traditionalist Old Calendar Greeks as a synod in resistance to modernism and ecumenism, much in the same way as they themselves were. But despite the increasing tension between ROCOR and the New Calendarists over the issue of ecumenism and the calendar change, the chief hierarch of ROCOR, Metropolitan Anastasi, was also opposed to creating a rival to a sister Orthodox church. The Council of 12 clergymen wrote several letters to Metropolitan Anastasi requesting that the ROCOR consecrate bishops for their church, but the answer was always in the negative. However, there were two ROCOR bishops, Theophil of Detroit and Seraphim of Chicago, who were willing to help the Greek Old Calendarists, but only in complete secrecy. That is why, on December 9th, 1960, a clandestine ordination took place in, of all places, the north side of Detroit, Michigan.
I'm standing right here near Ground Zero, where on September 11th, 2001, that horrible day, the Twin Towers that once stood here where the Freedom Tower now stands. Between the Koenig Sphere here and the Freedom Tower is where the Twin Towers stood. They were twice as thick as the Freedom Tower, and there were two of them. And they collapsed on that day when we were attacked. And when they collapsed, they fell right on St. Nicholas and Greek Orthodox Church, which was right here. We're gonna go down exactly where the church stood, and I will explain what happened in that church in 1956. This is what St. Nicholas Church looked like right after the first plane hit the South Tower. And this is what St. Nicholas Church looked like in the 1980s. And this is what the spot where St. Nicholas stood looks like today. This composition book from that day has the names of the priests who were present for the occasion that took place here, the 16th of February, 1956. What happened was, at that point in the history of the Old Calendar Church, of the Old Calendar Greek Orthodox Church, there were no more bishops left. Saint Chrysostomos, the new confessor of Florina, died in September of 1955. A few months later, in December of 1955, Arsenios Saltas, whose cathedral this was. St. Nicholas was a Greek Orthodox Old Calendar cathedral. Now, Arsenios Saltas was not much of a traditionalist. He wasn't really in his heart an Old Calendarist. Bishop Petros recognized that he was just an opportunist. Bishop Petros came to America at Arsenios's invitation, but Bishop Petros, or at that time Archimandrite Petros, lasted about 8 months with him. And then he went off and lived on his own for a while, saving money so he could go back to Greece. He did iconography. He lived up on Broadway in the Sugar Hill neighborhood of Manhattan, which was a Russian ethnic neighborhood at the time. He lived there for a while until he was ready to go back to Greece in the early part of 1954. He saved up enough money. He was about to go back to Greece, and the Pirialas family kept him here. The Pirialas told him, no, don't go back to Greece. We need you here. We'll give you money to put a down payment for a little house in Astoria, and that became the Cathedral of St. Markella. So from 1954, Bishop Petros was liturgizing in Astoria at St. Markella's Cathedral. Less than 2 years later, he comes down here with all the other priests that were a part of the Old Calendar movement in America, some 11 of them. There they are, they're their names. Some 11, even Father Michael Karloutzos. Father Michael Karloutzos' 2 sons are priests in the New Calendar Greek Orthodox Church in America, prominent priests. Anyway, Father Michael Karloutzos voted for what they voted for that day. And what were they here? What were they doing? They decided that they needed a bishop. The Greek Orthodox Church, the Old Calendar, genuine traditionalist church in America, needed bishops. They needed bishops in Greece too. And they decided they're going to deal with it here in America in their way by nominating a worthy candidate that they would present to a traditionalist Russian bishop so that they could have their selection ordained to the episcopacy, and this new bishop would minister to the Greek-speaking traditionalist Orthodox Christians of America. So these 10 priests got together right here on that day, and they elected or nominated Petros Astifides, Archimandrite Petros Astifides. So they took that nomination and they went to the Metropolitan Leonti Turkovic of the Metropolia. At the time it was called the Metropolia, now it's the OCA, and asked him to please take this worthy candidate and ordain him to the episcopacy so we have a Greek-speaking bishop for our people. There were quite a few Greek-speaking Old Calendarists at the time, and there still are. They were in Massachusetts, here in New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn, Detroit, Chicago. So Metropolitan Leonti refused. He refused because he was in communion he was in communion with the Archdiocese of North and South America, the New Calendar Greek Church, the Ecumenist, Modernist Church. He was in communion with the Church in Greece. He did not want to disrupt these relations. He wasn't ready to do that yet. So the Greek Old Calendarist laity and priests had no bishop until 1960, when ROCOR secretly, 2 bishops in ROCOR, secretly ordained Akakios Papas, Archimandrite Akakios Papas. He came from Greece, and in 1960, he was ordained in Detroit.
We're on 8 Mile in John R. In Detroit, and we're standing at the Old St. Nicholas Church, Romanian Orthodox Church, which is where Archbishop Akakios Papas was consecrated bishop in 1960 by Archbishop Seraphim of Chicago and the Romanian Bishop Theophil Ionescu, Bishop of Sevres. We see the church behind us. There's some remnants of the old Romanian Orthodox architecture. There's a little bell tower or cupola on top. St. Nicholas, Romanian Orthodox Church, was established in 1955 by dissidents who escaped from Romania, anti-communist dissidents. And many of them had fought in World War II against the Soviets. Others were conscientious objectors, and they had been imprisoned or they had been targeted by the secret police in Romania. And when they came to the United States, they found that many of the Romanian churches in the United States had been infiltrated by the secret police. And so various parishes broke with the Patriarchate of Romania and established a Romanian language episcopate, initially under ROCOR, under the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. St. Nicholas is one of those churches. Here we're looking at the cross that was placed here by the Romanian Orthodox Christians that established St. Nicholas Church in 1955. This was their fellowship hall. Next door is their house right here is their rectory. Here is the church. It was a very large community that was here between 1955 and 1987. And on December 19th, 1960, when the church was under the jurisdiction of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, Archbishop Seraphim of Chicago and Bishop Theophil Ionescu of Sevres ordained Archbishop Akakios Papas to the episcopate. In 1955, Metropolitan Chrysostomos of Florina had reposed Saint Chrysostomos, and he had not left the successors, and so a number of bishops in the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia agreed to assist in the restoration of the episcopate of our church.
Now, was this a canonical, uncanonical, valid, invalid consecration?
Well, under normal circumstances, it would have been highly irregular. But the circumstance of course, the calendar innovation and ecumenism are circumstances, mitigating circumstances, really, that justify the action. In that the bishops in Greece, the new calendar bishops in Greece, had compromised themselves by accepting an innovation, which was the first step in the implementation of modern ecumenism. So behind this wall is where the sanctuary of St. Nicholas Church was, and in the sanctuary was the altar at which Archbishop Akakios Papas was ordained, where the apostolic succession of the Greek Orthodox Church was restored in Detroit, not in Greece. The canonicity of this act, given the circumstances, and given its recognition later by St. Philaret and the Synod of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, is unassailable.
Where would the Holy Table have been? Probably right up there.
Oh, this is the east end of the church. Mm-hmm. And it was the site of the sanctuary of the church, where the ordinations, the ordination of Archbishop Akakios would have been right in here. You could kind of see the outline of the solea right here.
When Metropolitan Anastasi learned that Archbishop Seraphim of Chicago had secretly ordained Akakios Papas, he let it become known that he was not happy. There are some witnesses who testify that Seraphim was in fact suspended for 6 months. Irregardless of this, there were other bishops in the Russian Church who decided to proceed with further ordinations of bishops for the Greek Church. They did this at great risk to their reputations and their futures in the Russian Church. In 1961, Archbishop Leonte of Chile traveled to Greece, and together with Bishop Akakios Papas, he proceeded to ordain 6 bishops for the genuine Orthodox Church of Greece. When he returned to America, he, together with Bishop Seraphim of Caracas, secretly ordained Petros Astifidis to the rank of bishop. This ordination took place in the Church of St. Markella on November 29th, 1962.
Ο γέροντάς μου ο Πέτρος ο Αστιφίδης χειροτονήθηκε εδώ στην Αγία Μαρκέλα στην Αστόρια το 1962 από τους αρχιερείς Λεόντιο από τη Χιλή και από τη Βενεζουέλα Καράκας Σεραφείμ 29 Νοεμβρίου με το Ορθόδοξο Ορτολόγιο. Εκείνη την ημέρα είναι παραμόνη και φιλουμένη ορθάζει η Εκκλησία μας αυτούς τους Αγίους. Ήταν απόφαση των Αγίων Αρχιερέων να τον πάρουν τον γέροντά μου στο Καράκας να το χειροτονήσουν, γιατί ήταν εμέρη διωγμός και δεν ήθελαν εδώ πολύ ανοιχτά να το χειροτονήσουν. Και μου είπαν ο Σεβασμιότατος Λεόντιος, Νικοδήμε, είσαι satisfied, ευχαριστημένος που θα πάρουμε το γέροντά σου στο Καράκας να το χειροτονήσουμε? Του είπα, I say no. Του είπα όχι. Γιατί? Because δεν θα είμαι στη χειροτονία του στο Καράκας. Και πήγε και συνεννοήθηκε με τον άλλον αρχιερέα, το Σεβασμιότατο Σεραφείμ, και έρχεται σε λίγο και μου λέει Σέμι, Νικοδήμ, good news, θα το χειροτονήσουμε αύριο στην Αγία Μαρκέλα. Και τότε εγώ πολύ χάρηκα. Και έτσι ετοιμάσαμε εκείνο το βράδυ, ήταν Τρίτη εσπέρας προς Τετάρτη πρωί και κάναμε αγρυπνία και χειροτώνησαν οι δύο αρχιερείς, το γέροντά μου τον Πέτρο αρχιερέα. Είμαστε εγώ και η γερόντισσα συγκλητική και 2-3 άλλα άτομα, γιατί ήταν μυστική χειροτονία λόγω του διωγμού που είχε η Εκκλησία μας. Ήταν μερικοί άνθρωποι της Εκκλησίας μας. Μία ήταν και η γερόντισσα Θεοκτίστη που γίνει και μετά μοναχή. Ήταν λαϊκή ακόμα τότε. Και εκείνη μαγείρευσε. I was deacon that time, 2 χρόνια ήμουν διάκονος και έτσι ήμουν στη χειροτονία του γέροντά μου. Μαζί ήταν και ο νυν Σεβασμιότατος Ακάκιος από το Μοντρεάλ. Τότε μόλις τον είχαμε χειροτονήσει διάκονο και ιερέα πριν 2 εβδομάδες. Εκείνη η χειροτονία θα μου μείνει αλυσμόνητη. Από τότε δεν έχω παρακολουθήσει η χειροτονία αρχιερέως.
Θυμάμαι ότι είχαμε πάρα πολύ μεγάλο πρόβλημα με τη χειροτονία του. Ο Δεσπότης ο Λεόντιος μία μέρα μπροστά μου και μπροστά σε άλλους έκανε τηλέφωνο στην Αθήνα για να μιλήσει στους αρχιερείς ότι θα χειροτονήσει τον γέροντα τον Πέτρο. Στο τηλέφωνο ήταν ο Chrysostomos Νασλήμης της Μαγνησίας και από το τηλέφωνο φώναξε δυνατά «Νιέτ Πέτρος». Ο γέροντας ο Πέτρος το άκουσε ότι αυτός αντιδρούσε και δεν ήθελε να χειροτονηθεί ο γέροντας ο Πέτρος Δεσπότης και ησύχασε. 1-2 μέρες μετά, δεν μπορώ να σας πω πόσο, θυμάμαι, λέει «Βρε παιδιά, ξύπνησα και είδα ένα πάρα πολύ παράξενο όνειρο». Κάποιος με χτύπησε στην πλάτη και μου είπε Σεραφιμάκι. Άκουσα το όνειρό του εγώ και μου φάνηκε λιγάκι αστείο. Λέω τι όνειρο είναι. Όμως δεν ήταν όνειρο, ήταν αποκάλυψη. Κάποιος άγγελος Κυρίου, ο Θεός γνωρίζει ποιον είχε στείλει ο Κύριος για να τον προετοιμάσει για τη χειροτονία. Υπήρχαν 2 Σεραφείμ στην Ρωσική Εκκλησία. Ο Σεραφείμ ο γυραιός, ο οποίος ήταν στο Σικάγο και ο οποίος δεν ήθελε πουδενή λόγο να χειροτονηθεί ο γέροντας αρχιερεύς, και ο Σεραφείμ ο μικρός που ήταν από την Βενεζουέλα και γι' αυτό στο όνειρό του άκουσε Σεραφιμάκι. Τελικά ο Δεσπότης ο Λεόντιος κανόνισε τη χειροτονία μαζί με τον Σεραφείμ που έτυχε να είναι εδώ στη Νέα Υόρκη και είχαν αποφασίσει να χειροτονηθεί σε μία αγρυπνία που κάναμε του Αγίου Παραμόνου και Φιλουμένου. Ο Λεόντιος δεν ήθελε να υπάρχουν πολλοί άνθρωποι για να βρίσκονται, γιατί δεν ήθελε να γίνει η χειροτονία μυστική. Φυσικά ο Δεσπότης ο Πέτρος, Αρχιμανδρίτης τότε βέβαια, του είπε ότι θα γίνει η επιθυμία του και δεν κάλεσε κανέναν. Εμείς είμαστε μόνο 3 γυναίκες. Ήταν η αδελφή Φιλοθέη, η οποία είχε γίνει δροσοφόρα μοναχή και έχει τώρα πεθάνει. Μια νεοκόρισσα που την είχε για χρόνια γέροντας, την κυρία Κούλα Λιβάνη, και τον εαυτό μου. Φυσικά θέλαμε κι εμείς να δούμε τη χειροτονία. Τότε η εκκλησία ήταν πολύ μικρή, χωρισμένη στα δυο. Στο ένα μέρος, στο πολύ βορεινό, ήταν η καθεαυτού εκκλησία. Μετά υπήρχε ένας μεγάλος διαχωρισμός με χοντρές κουρτίνες, τις οποίες τις είχαμε κατεβάσει, τις είχαμε κλείσει, και στο επόμενο μέρος ήταν η πρώτη μεγάλη αίθουσα μπαίνοντας μέσα στην εκκλησία. Εκεί πέρα ήταν το καταφύγιό μας τη νύχτα για να τραβάμε λίγο την κουρτίνα και για να βλέπουμε τη χειροτονία. Θυμάμαι είχαν βάλει καρέκλες εκτός του ιερού και μου φάνηκε αυτό βέβαια πολύ παράξενο γιατί δεν το είχα ξαναδεί. Είδα τους αρχιερείς και επίσης τον πατέρα Νικόδημο, τον πατέρα Ακάκιο από το Ακάκιο, από το Montreal και τον πατέρα Ελευθέριο Μόσχο που τώρα βρίσκεται μοναχός στο Άγιον Όρος. Εμείς παρακολουθήσαμε τη χειροτονία, σας είπα, τραβώντας την κουρτίνα. Όταν τελείωσε η χειροτονία, βέβαια εμείς είχαμε εξαφανιστεί. Δεν θυμάμαι λεπτομέρειες πώς τους είχα ετοιμάσει το πρωινό, δεν θυμάμαι καθόλου. Θυμάμαι όμως ότι είχαμε κλείσει πάλι τις κουρτίνες και στο πρώτο μέρος είχαμε στρώσει εμείς οι τρεις για να μπορέσουμε να ξεκουραστούμε και για να μην μας δούνε κιόλας οι αρχιερείς. Αυτά θυμάμαι για τη χειροτονία του. Τίποτε άλλο.
Metropolitan Anastasi and the Holy Synod of ROCOR did not recognize the ordinations of Akakios or of Petros, or any of the secret ordinations of Greek bishops. They were seen as wholly uncanonical and were publicly and officially disowned by the ROCOR. However, in private, there was a completely different opinion that was held by a great portion of the members of the Russian Synod. St. John of San Francisco and 7 other Russian bishops, counting Seraphim of Chicago, Leonti of Chile, Averki of Syracuse, Seraphim of Caracas, Nectari of Seattle, Savas of Edmonton, and Anthony of Melbourne, considered them to be truly valid bishops. Among all the letters and documents in the archives of the Cathedral of St. Markella, there are 2 letters that shed some light on this. One letter is a note from 5 Russian bishops thanking Bishop Petros for his hospitality in hosting them at the Cathedral of St. Markella. These bishops came to visit Bishop Petros on the feast day of St. Markella, the Virgin Martyr of Chios. This letter is dated less than a year after Petros was ordained to the episcopacy. In the letter, they address him as their brother hierarch. One of the photographs from that very day was taken down this alley on Crescent Street behind the cathedral. A second letter that is kept in the archives in Astoria is from St. John Maximovich, the Archbishop of San Francisco. It is addressed to Bishop Petros. It is dated May 16th, 1964. In the letter, St. John uses Greek to inform his Greek friend that the Russian Synod has elected a new first hierarch, and that hierarch is Metropolitan Philaret of New York. In 1969, a mere 5 years after this letter was sent, every bishop of the Russian Synod of ROCOR and their chief hierarch, Saint Philaret, the Metropolitan of New York, accepted all the secret ordinations of the Greek bishops conducted by Archbishop Seraphim of Chicago, Archbishop Leonti of Chile, and Bishop Seraphim of Caracas as valid, and the Greek Church was officially recognized as a sister church in full Eucharistic communion with ROCOR. In 1974, During the period when the Church of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece was in full Eucharistic communion with the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, the Russian Synod was also in full Eucharistic communion with another Greek Old Calendarist group of bishops known as the Matthewite Synod. But the Matthewite Synod was not in communion with the Church of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece. Saint Philaret of New York, the chief hierarch of ROCOR, fervently sought to have the two traditionalist Greek synods that were united with his Russian synod establish unity with each other. But the Matthewites' main concern was that the Church of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece did not consistently deny the grace of the new Calendarist Church of Greece. To the Matthewites, this indicated that the Greek Orthodox Church was not truly against ecumenism and not fully orthodox in its confession. Therefore, in order to facilitate union with the Matthewites and put any doubts of their anti-ecumenist confession to rest, the Holy Synod of the Church of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece clarified its position in an encyclical published in early 1974 that was titled, "Thus do we believe, thus do we speak." In this encyclical, the Holy Synod of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece expressed their definitive position that the new Calendarist Church was devoid of grace. Bishop Petros refused to sign the encyclical on the advice of Saint Philaret and the Synod of ROCOR. But because of his refusal, the Holy Synod of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece removed Petros from the Holy Synod on June 5th, 1974.
Well, the 1974 encyclical was an attempt to come to terms with the Matthewites. In 1971, the Matthewites had gone to ROCOR to have the ordinations regularized. And when the two representatives of the Matthewites returned to Greece, the whole restoration of union broke down. The whole project of reunification broke down. In 1974, just like in 1950, the Florentine Synod made a serious attempt to come to terms with the Matthewites, to convince them that there's nothing to fear in joining the Florentine Synod or uniting with the Florentine Synod. Metropolitan Petros, who was in the United States and had been ordained by ROCOR in the United States, of course asked what he should do, and he was given the answer not to sign. The particular statement in the 1974 encyclical, which states that the New Calendar Church does not have any grace. And for Metropolitan Petros, this was less a theological question than it was a pastoral question, because the question of no grace in the New Calendar Church immediately implies multiple impediments or multiple roadblocks that, let's say, a New Calendarist Orthodox Christian has to overcome in order to join our church, including, most importantly, chrismation. And so Metropolitan Petros, I think, was of the school of thought that we should reduce the number of requirements. And the statement that there is no grace in the New Calendar Church creates more requirements. Well, it's a very difficult position that Metropolitan Petros is in, because on the one hand, he's been instructed by ROCOR, after asking him the specific question about the question of grace, not to sign the encyclical. On the other hand, the encyclical is part of a project that ROCOR has a stake in, or at least feels St. Philaret feels very strongly about, which is, again, the reunification of the Greek Church. Simultaneously, internally, the Greek Church is in disarray because of the policies of Archbishop Avxentios, who by this time had been receiving almost routinely priests from the New Calendar Church that were not worthy of the calling. And around the same time, shortly after the promulgation of the encyclical of 1974, there was a movement in Greece among a group of bishops to cease participating in the synod meetings in protest to Archbishop Avxantios' carelessness in admitting in accepting these priests. Among them is the future Archbishop Chrysostomos, who at the time was Metropolitan of Thessaloniki. And so it's a very difficult position for Metropolitan Petros, both in his relationship with the Russian Church, but also based on his knowledge of affairs in the Greek Church. And finally, because of his pastorship, because of his pastoral mission in Astoria, New York, which was to bring the Greek Orthodox immigrants of Astoria in particular, and more broadly in the United States and Canada, to the faith of the fathers, to bring them back to the knowledge of their faith and to bring them into the Church of the patristic calendar. Metropolitan Petros was in an impossible situation indeed, because the synod that ordained him had instructed him not to sign the document that his home synod was requiring him to sign. And anyone in that situation would be perplexed as to what to do.
I was ordained by the most holy bishops of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. My ordination was recognized by the Russian Synod. From a canonical aspect, I should have belonged to the Russian Synod from the time of my ordination, but my heart was set on helping the struggling anti-ecumenist, anti-modernist, Old Calendarist Church of Greece, which is truly suffering greatly from the enemies of the faith. However, I always enjoyed and desired to have communion with my maternal Russian Synod. My communion with the Synod of Greece has been severed. The Russian Holy Synod of Bishops has also severed communion with me, ironically enough, because I obey and follow its own decrees, and I will not sign something the Russian Synod itself condemns. As for my future canonical position, that, I think, should be in accordance with the holy canons of the Church. In the words of St. Ignatius the God-bearer, where there is unity, there also is Jesus Christ. It is therefore my conviction that the only canonical thing for me and my clergymen to do is to ask my brother bishops to accept me into the Holy Council of Bishops of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia as a full member under the Synod's jurisdiction. Presently, we commemorate Metropolitan Filaret's name during the proskomidi, but we dearly want to commemorate his name during all services in all churches. I consider the Russian Synod as an oasis of orthodoxy in the desert of ecumenism and heresy. And it is for this reason that it is my fondest wish to have ecclesiastical union with you.
So Metropolitan Petros was isolated. He didn't want to sign the document, and his home synod had basically erased his name from the list of bishops. He wanted to be in full communion and part of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, a member of that synod and the hierarchy of bishops. And yet, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia refused to admit him, to commune with him, to concelebrate with him, because they took a very strict stand on the question of ecclesiastical order. They saw themselves, if they would admit Metropolitan Petros into communion, as harboring a renegade. And we have to put that in the context of St. Philaret's efforts in the late 60s and early 70s, again, to restore the unity of the Greek Church. And so admitting Metropolitan Petros like that as a renegade would have militated against that entire project and the entire vision of the united front against the ecumenists. We should view Metropolitan Petros' policy as part of the early history of the question of the communion of New Calendarists. Because anyone that knows the community of St. Markella's knows that he was a strict confessor, that he confessed people as a spiritual father. In hindsight, though, I think we have to see the whole question in conjunction with the development of ecumenism. As ecumenism gets worse, the answer to the question of how the New Calendarists should be received becomes much clearer. And so in 2018, it's much easier for us to say, of course, they need to be received as someone coming from outside of the church.
Υγεία ψυχής και σώματος σας εύχομαι σε όλους να χαίρεστε. Κοντά στο Χριστό μας όλοι να είμεθα και να αξιωθούμε να δούμε ελευθέρα την Κύπρο μας και όλα τα έθνη τα οποία μας κατέχουν οι βάρβαροι εχθροί της Ορθοδοξίας και του Ελληνισμού. Και του χρόνου και καλή Ανάσταση σας εύχομαι.
In 1978, in a letter to Metropolitan Petros of Astoria, Metropolitan Philaret and the Holy Synod of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia rejected his request to enter into ecclesiastical communion. But in 1985, he was finally accepted back into the Holy Synod of the genuine Orthodox Church of Greece. It would take until 1994, 20 years after his removal from the Synod and a few short years before his death, for Metropolitan Petros to finally re-establish ecclesiastical communion with the Russian Church. In fact, 1 year before he reposed on January 9th, 1997, he celebrated a divine liturgy at the Russian monastery of the Holy Trinity in Jordanville, New York. At the time of his death, he was a full member of the Holy Synod of the genuine Orthodox Church of Greece, and was once again in full communion with his beloved Russian Church.
Η Εκκλησία μας, η ταπεινή μας αυτή Ιερά Μητρόπολη της Αγίας Μαρκέλης, για χρόνια ολόκληρα προσφέρει εις την ομογένεια μία αρκετά μεγάλη υπηρεσία. Μιμούμενοι και εμείς τους πατέρες της τουρκοκρατίας ιδρύσαμε ένα κρυφό σχολείο πριν από 30 και πλέον χρόνια. Μέσα σε αυτό το σχολείο της Αγίας Μαρκέλης εφοίτησαν αρκετοί μαθητές, Ελληνόπαιδες της Αμερικής, παιδιά γεννημένα εδώ στην Αμερική που εξέμαθαν την ελληνική γλώσσα, μαθαίνοντας την αθάνατη γλώσσα της πατρίδος μας και την θρησκεία μας από τις γερόντισσες αδελφές, οι οποίες ακριβώς όχι μόνο θυσίασαν τη ζωή τους για την αγάπη του Ναζωραίου, αλλά και επίσης προσέφεραν, όπως σας είπα και στην αρχή, τις υπηρεσίες τους εις την ελληνική ομογένεια της Αμερικής. Κοντά μας απόψε λοιπόν έχουμε τη γερόντισσα συγκλητική μαζί με τη συνοδεία της. Καταρχήν, πριν προχωρήσουμε, θα ήθελα και εγώ να πω ότι ένας από τους μαθητές του ελληνικού σχολείου της Αγίας Μαρκέλης υπήρξα και εγώ πριν από 30 χρόνια και δασκάλα μου ήταν η αδελφή συγκλητική, η οποία μετά από τόσα χρόνια τώρα πλέον, αντί να με έχει μαθητή της, πλέον έχω γίνει πρεσβύτερος της Εκκλησίας και εξυπηρετώ την Εκκλησία. Και τα πρώτα μου βήματα τα ξεκίνησα μέσα από αυτό το ελληνικό σχολείο, της Αγίας Μαρκέλης. Πόσα χρόνια βρίσκεστε εδώ στην Αμερική?
30.
Και από πού ξεκινήσετε?
Ξεκινήσαμε από τον Άγιο Μινά, από το μοναστήρι μας στον Άγιο Μινά, και ο γεροντάς μας έστειλε εδώ για να ενισχύσουμε, να βοηθήσουμε το σχολείο της Αγίας Μαρκέλας, το οποίο είχε αρχίσει πριν 4 χρόνια περίπου, από τον καιρό που είχαμε έρθει εμείς εδώ.
Μαζί σας ήρθε και η γερόντισσα Διονυσία.
Λίγο αργότερα ήλθε η αδελφή Διονυσία εδώ.
Και στη συνέχεια
και στη συνέχεια ήρθε η αδελφή Μυροφόρα από την Ελλάδα, και οι υπόλοιπες αδελφές έχουν έρθει εδώ από διάφορα μέρη της Αμερικής και του Καναδά. Προσπαθήσαμε με κάθε τρόπο να μάθουμε τα παιδιά όσο δυνατόν την θρησκεία μας, να τους μιλήσουμε για την πατρίδα μας, να μάθουν τη γλώσσα μας, να μπορούν να μιλούν, να διαβάζουν και να γράφουν κατά κάποιο τρόπο ελληνικά, και να ξυπνήσουμε μέσα τους το πατριωτισμό που σαν Ελληνόπαιδα και αυτά βρίσκονται τόσο μακριά από την αγαπημένη μας πατρίδα, να νιώσουν και αυτά ότι είναι ένα κομμάτι του ελληνικού λαού που βρίσκεται τόσο μακριά μας από εδώ στην Αμερική. Πιστεύω ότι κάπως το έχουμε κατορθώσει αυτό, και με πολύ χαρά βλέπουμε παιδιά που έχουμε να τα δούμε 30 χρόνια ή λιγότερο, ξέρω εγώ, να έρχονται να μας αγκαλιάζουν και να μας φέρουν ακόμη και τα παιδιά τους στο σχολείο μας. Συγκεκριμένα χθες ήρθε ένας μαθητής μας που δεν τον γνωρίσαμε, γιατί όταν τον ρωτήσαμε πόσο χρόνο είσαι, μας είπε ότι είναι 30 ετών. Και τον είχαμε όταν εδώ ήταν 7 χρονών παιδάκι. Βέβαια μετά από 23 χρόνια ήταν φυσικό να μην τον γνωρίσουμε.
Πόσοι μαθητές νομίζετε έχουν περάσει από το σχολείο?
Από τον έχουν περάσει πάνω από 5.000.
They're finally finishing the facade of the church after 30 years of ikotomi, of building, which wasn't Bishop Petros's idea originally, but he allowed it to happen on one condition, that the new church would be built around the old church, and when the construction is done, to wheelbarrow out the fragments of the old church. No, it wasn't Bishop Petros's idea. He preferred to keep the church simple as it was, as he started it. But he allowed it to happen under one condition, that none of the services would be interrupted during this building project. I was maybe in my mid-teens helping out wheelbarrowing the old church, along with a monk at the time, Bishop, Pater Christopoulos, who's Bishop Christopoulos now. And, you know, it's almost done after 30 years.
Παρθενή αντιρρήσας αδιάφορον, ουρανής θαλάμης νησίνη ρύθμισε, του πατρός το ασεργές αποκρούσασα, τους μαστούς και κεφαλήν απετμήθης παρά αυτού, Μαρκέλα χείου το κλαίος, και νίνος μαρτιστευθήσα, Πηγή θαυμάτων αυτόν ως δείκνυσε. Όταν αποφάσισε και βοηθήθηκε για να έχει ένα ορισμένο ποσό να πάρει την Αγία Μαρκέλα, πήγε την Αγία Μαρκέλα και εν τω μεταξύ, επειδή του άρεσε πάρα πολύ το συγγραφικό έργο και εκτός από τα συγγραφικά του έργα έγραψε και ορισμένα πολιτίκια. Μεταξύ αυτών ήταν και το πολιτίκιο της Αγίας Μαρκέλας, το οποίο σας ψάλαμε τώρα τελευταία. Φυσικά έχει γράψει και της Αγίας Ματρώνας, έχει γράψει του Αγίου Μινά, πολλών Αγίων, των Αγίων 23 Μαρτύρων της Χίου και τα λοιπά. Επίσης υπάρχει και ένα άλλο απολυτίκιο των Αγίων Μαρτύρων, οι οποίοι δεν έχουν ακόμη εμφανιστεί, αλλά εκ παραδόσεως γνωρίζουμε ότι κάπου σε ορισμένο μέρος της Χίου είναι θαμμένα 63 παλικάρια και τους έχει γράψει ένα ορισμένο πολιτίκιο και για αυτά τα οποία ακόμη δεν έχουν βρει τον κατάλληλο Άγιο άνθρωπο για να εμφανιστούν. Δεν μας τρομάζουν φύλακες, πείνα, δαρμυστερήσεις, δεν μας φοβίζουν διωγμοί και μυριάλες θλίψεις. Είμεθα όλοι έτοιμοι να γίνουμε θυσία, το αίμα μας να χύσουμε για την Ορθοδοξία. Το αίμα μας να χύσουμε για την Ορθοδοξία.
How will Bishop Petros be remembered? Well, many ways, but the most enduring part of his legacy was his participation, his struggle to reestablish the apostolic succession of the Greek Orthodox Church. Without his co-workers like St. Chrysostomos of Florina, Archbishop Akakios of Athens, Archbishop Chrysostomos of Athens, the martyr, St. Catherine Rutis, and all the other strugglers of the Old Calendar movement, there would be no Greek Orthodox Church today. But Christ worked through these people, so we know that the church never would have disappeared. But it was through these men and women that we have a Greek Orthodox Church today. And we are all reaping the benefits of that. When all the other legacy monuments of Bishop Petros, his Greek school, his cathedral, his spiritual children, when they're all gone, when all the viewers watching this program are gone, including myself, the church will endure. The Greek Orthodox Church that was reestablished by those hierarchs, his co-workers and he himself.